Hey everyone, Mr. Terror here with your e-learning lesson for April the 17th. Today, our Journey 2050 unit is going to take us to water. We're going to talk about water, the importance of water. Obviously, we know that it's a very important natural resource, but probably one of the natural resources that we take for granted quite often. So we're going to talk about the importance of water when it comes to feeding the world. So water is everywhere. It's everything. It's what makes life possible on this planet. And yet it is such a vital natural resource, but still so scarce. There's so much water on Earth, but most of it is not usable either for growing crops or for drinking, and really for sustaining much life. The percentage of fresh water that we have on this planet, usable fresh water, is very limited. And we have to make sure that we are treating it as precious as we should, because if that water were to go away, so would life on this planet. And water is extremely important. So I want you to press pause on this video, and I want you to go watch the Journey 2050 water video that I've posted on Canvas. So press pause on this, watch this video, and as you watch those videos, as you watch that video, I want you to ask yourself, how much water is used in agriculture? What methods do farmers use to irrigate their crops? And what best management practices can be implemented to use water more efficiently in agriculture? So press pause on this video, whoops, and then go watch the Journey 2050 video. So you saw there in the video, water is very key, and we have such a limited amount of it that the way that we manage that water and we take care of that water is of the utmost importance. So let's talk about how we utilize water in agriculture. So it might seem very simple. We use water to provide water and sustain life for our plants, but it really goes a lot deeper than that. Water is the core of what we do. Agriculture and farming is, built around the sustaining of life, and nothing can live on this planet without access to at least a certain degree of water. So think about what a farmer needs to grow a crop. Obviously, you need soil, you need sunlight, you need a seed, okay? But water's right there in terms of the core things that you need in order to successfully grow a crop. So let's talk about irrigation. And irrigation is something we don't see. I won't say we don't see it here in the Midwest, but you don't see a lot of it. But if you travel to even other parts of the United States, irrigation is widely used just because they don't get enough rainwater, they don't get enough precipitation in order to get a successful crop every year. Okay, so irrigation is very important. There's some different types of irrigation that exist. The first type is drip irrigation. And with drip irrigation, I think you saw there in the video, you've got these plastic pipes that are laid between each crop row, and in those pipes there are tiny holes. And basically, what happens is those tiny holes drip at the base of the plants. And we use drip irrigation for fruits and vegetables mainly. You don't see it a ton in corn production. I guess there's a cornfield here that uses it, but it's mostly used for fruits and vegetables. So here's your water line. There's tiny little holes in that water line, and as the water is pumped through the holes, droplets of water drip through those holes and water the plants. Then we have center pivot irrigation. And if you see any irrigation in the Midwest, this is probably what you've seen. You've seen these big irrigation rigs in the middle of the field. And basically, what happens is it's a large scale sprinkler system. So some of you might have a sprinkler system in your lawn. This is a bigger version of that. And it's a line of sprinklers that pivot around the center point in the field. So in the middle of the field, there'll be a post basically, and this entire rig will rotate around that post, basically in a circle around that post. It's got wheels on it, and it'll slowly make a circle around that entire field, watering that crop as it goes around. This is probably the least common type of irrigation that you'll see in this part of the world, and that's flood or furrow irrigation. So what they'll do is basically they will dig furrows or almost a trench between each individual plant row, and we will flood each of those furrows, and the idea is that water will soak into each row of plants. So you see some of this in the Southwest. Texas will do some flood irrigation or furrow irrigation. You will see some of that down there. So besides irrigation, in what other ways does agriculture use water? Well, irrigation mostly focuses on plant production or agronomy, but livestock producers need water. We need water so that our livestock have clean drinking water to drink. We use water to clean our facilities and sterilize those facilities. For example, a dairy farm uh, is or has to be very, very adamant about cleaning their equipment, cleaning their facilities out. Well, how do we clean things? We use water to do that. And then food processing. When we process our food, we utilize water as well. So at the end of the video, they talked about conservation tillage. And conservation tillage is a great way to conserve several natural resources. First of all, it's good for the soil. It increases the soil organic matter. It protects that soil from erosion. But conservation tillage is also helpful from a water standpoint because it prevents water from rushing over this field and picking up soil particles and becoming polluted. So that's one way in which we can uh, allow the soil to hold on to more water and to be less prone to erosion. Another concept they mentioned was riparian areas. And basically, a riparian area is, let's say you have a situation where you have a farm field that butts up to a body of water. Maybe it's a lake or a river or a creek. A riparian area is simply a narrow strip of native vegetation, so native grasses, native trees and shrubs, um, and it's just basically a filter strip. And the idea is that let's say that we put fertilizer on this field up here, okay, and there's still some fertilizer on the soil surface. We get a big time rain. Okay, what's going to happen to that soil or that fertilizer? Well, that water is going to run down this field, and it's without anything here. It's just going to dump that excess fertilizer right into this lake right here, right? We don't want that, right? We don't want that fertilizer ending up in the water. So this riparian area, you can see here they've just got a narrow strip of trees and shrubs and native vegetation, serves as almost a filter. So what happens is that water runs down this hill, but it has to go through this riparian area before it gets into the lake. And what happens is all those grasses and trees and shrubs, the roots of those plants filter out all those impurities in that water, and now clean water is going into this lake instead of water that contains fertilizer. So that's a perfect example of how a riparian area works. Riparian areas are also great because they provide a habitat for wildlife. So squirrels and deer and things like that can also live in these areas as well. So the goal with any farmer, if we're using irrigation, is to implement an irrigation system that makes sense for the crop and the land. We want to satisfy the demand for water that the crop has, but we also want to make sure that we're taking care of the land. If we can decrease water evaporation, that's great. We can do that by delivering the water directly to the plant root so that it doesn't evaporate. It goes into the plant where it can do the most good. And keeping good measurements, keeping accurate measurements of soil water content is important as well. So the question is, how can we protect and conserve water at home, in our schools and communities? Okay. Actually, we'll go ahead and stop there for right now. On Monday, we will continue with our discussion on water. You have some discussion questions that I want you to answer on Canvas. Keep in mind this assignment is due on um, Sunday, April the 19th by 11:59 p.m. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. I will gladly help you. Uh, but have a great weekend, and I will see you all on Monday. Thank you.